Buenos nachos, amigos, and welcome to Record Breakers, your premier source for high-quality, serious music discussion. Said no one ever. Your book club for music, where a few of us hang out, share music with each other on periodic time frame, and share albums with each other. See what we think, see what the other guys think. And we do it often. I don't know where I was going for that. I never know where I'm going with these intros. I just open my mouth and words come out. That's my life right there.
You're qualified to be president of the United States now.
Yeah, let's talk about music. We're going to share music with each other. I'm Peter Rape, your man with no plan. Here with me, of course, is my team, my squad. We have the previously heard there, Patrick.
Hello.
We've got Brett.
Hey, everybody.
And we've got Drew.
Hi.
We're here to talk about music, and the provider of music this week is Patrick. Patrick, what do you got for us this week?
Rage Against the Machine, self-titled debut album, Rage Against the Machine, a album I've been listening to for way too goddamn long.
Mm-hmm. An album came out in 1992. It was their debut album. It's kind of a pioneering album, which is really cool and interesting to talk about. But let's talk about expectations. Brett, what were your expectations coming into this album?
Well, you could say I'm familiar with the band Rage Against the Machine. It was one of those things I was there for. And I believe all of us were there for it. Yeah. It's like I knew exactly what I was walking into. I forgot it was as old as it was, but other than that, this gun has only a few bullets in it, and I'm saving some of them.
Drew, what were your expectations coming into this album?
Rage Against the Machine is a band that I am familiar with. They are a band that I think anybody who listened to alternative radio at any point in the 90s probably going to be kind of familiar with. They were a band that were iconic for a long time. Longer than most bands in the political genre were, but political bands of this type were. So there's something that I think everybody's pretty familiar with here. I don't think I'm speaking out of turn. Just because when you have a band that is sort of an icon, you sort of know what you're getting yourself into.
Mm-hmm. In a sense. Yeah, definitely. We were there for the entirety of most of what Rage Against the Machine's career was, even though we weren't necessarily there for this album when it came out. But yeah, this is definitely familiar. You hear some of the songs on this album on the radio now.
You didn't for like a large chunk of time.
Yeah. Which is a whole other thing.
Thanks,
yeah.
Clear Channel.
They're iHeart Media. Thank you very much.
Yes. iHeart.
Thanks,
Media.
Clear Channel. We still fucking hate you.
Yeah, especially for leaving us with only one rock station in Miami. Fuck. At least we used to have two rock stations in Miami. We had an old rock station and the new rock station. Now we just have the old rock.
I just figured out my television remote. My TV remote has an iHeartRadio button. I have a Clear Channel button on my TV. Okay.
Also, I gave up on terrestrial radio when I could burn CDs. That's neither here nor there. We're not here to talk about radio. This isn't Radio Breakers. This isn't radio
adjacent.
This isn't our radio industry podcast that we do in secret.
We'll be seeing you guys at the National Association for Broadcasters later this month.
Nor is this Ham Nation. This is something else. All right. Rage Against the Machine. Patrick, how would you describe this album musically?
This record's fucking angry. So I didn't think of this until I brought it, but if you aren't aware, Rage Against the Machine are very political or have very strong political views. Tom Morello is an avowed socialist, and I realized I'm on here with a couple of libertarians who are, very much on the opposite
Don't call
side.
PD names.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I was just like, oh yeah, this is
Tom
gonna be
Morello
fun.
is a hypocrite, not a socialist. But go on.
But that is one thing, is like they instead of channeling anger in the way that much rock music does at being mad at their dad, this channels it at being mad at various political institutions. Same idea, different target. But what I love about Rage Against the Machine is the guitars are it's almost all exclusively minor pentatonic scales, abused, but makes really, really fun, like powerful guitar riffs. Timmy Comerford's a crazy good bass player. Brad Wilk's a good drummer, and I actually kind of like Zach De La Rocca. He is a very angry young man on this record, and it shows.
Or as Samus would have pronounced it, Samus pronounced it in the last week's album, Zach De La Rocha, I believe.
Yes,
I noticed that.
It made me laugh a little bit inside.
But like I said a little bit, last week, when I was learning how to play bass, one of the songs I remember learning was Freedom. And I borrowed the cassette tape of this from my at the time guitar teacher, and never gave it back. And when I got my first car, it had a cassette deck for the first year I owned it, and this was one of 6 tapes I had. So I wore the shit out of it, and I still love this record now. I mean, I've been listening to it. So I got this record. I had heard many of the songs, but I had this record in whole, and probably 15 years ago, and maybe a little even older than that. And yeah, I've never really stopped listening to it.
Mm-hmm. Brett, how would you describe this album musically? What would be the themes and elements that make it up?
Well, I mean, I don't mind Rage Against the Machine musically. I'm not a huge fan. Their simple, fuzzed out bass lines are cool. This is a groove album. I mean, the vocals are pretty integral to the punch of the album, and it wouldn't really be the same band if you put someone who could belt it out in the lead singing position. Sort of be a different thing. I liked a little more, but this is
they did that. It's called Audio Slave.
That's the joke.
Okay.
That's the joke. .jpg.
I mean,
I was going to go with. I think that's what Brett was going for.
I mean, it's better than making comic books, but they're a controversial band. They pissed off the largest single radio station owner, and were pretty much taken off the radio because of it. I mean, the band, it's a politically charged band from those tough social and economical times of the 90s that we look back on and be like, man, I could never go back and live there. This is an important album that did an important thing. The Che Guevara t-shirts probably paid for at least 1 year's worth of operating costs for Hot Topic. This is a very it's got a strong beat. The bass line really drives a lot of things. Guitars there kind of as like a noise machine melody thing, and that's cool in some points. It also follows the bass line a lot. It's not quite like tune your guitar to Z and fart some noise. There's some play. Yeah, a lot of it is minor pentatonic, but that's rock and roll. So I can't blame them for that. But yeah, this is one of those albums that I too, as a young student playing guitar, learned quite a bit of, because that's what was known by my guitar teacher.
Drew, how would you describe this album musically? What would be the themes and elements that catch your attention?
Well, The Rage Against the Machine, when I was young, was a band I listened a lot to, along with bands like Anti-Flag, which I know is really weird hearing come from me. But it was. So that's the thing, is what's great about this record is, or what is known about this record and what sort of it breathes in, is anger. It's a very, very angry record, and everything plays into that, I think. Roka's rap part of the rap metal that is this album, is angry and is pointed and is yelling and it is the finger of "I hate you for the thing." On the anniversary record, if you listen to the live stuff, he starts bad mouthing the Dixiecrat Clinton, as he called it, which I think was pretty great. Stuff like that. So they do not shy away from it. And for a band that's that politically charged and that sort of angry about things and is willing to put it down in a studio like that, the fact that they stayed around for 9 years, I think their first run was I believe about 9-10 years, is kind of remarkable to me. Because usually you would have some sort of fight, but commend them for that. The sound they created is this sort of, like Brett said, it's a groove record. There is some syncopation going on in these rhythms. There is some funkiness going on. Tom Morello, my misgivings about all the stories I've heard about him as a person, was inventive as a guitar player, if nothing else, whether you like him from a technical standpoint or not. He did some weird things with a guitar that I don't know if people really thought about doing before him, but really he did it, and that sort of became that alternative metal sound for guitar for much of the 90s, for better or worse. But Tom Morello, I did it really kind of first and did it, in my opinion, best. The bass work in here. Let's talk about Tim. Tim, if you want bass that was slapping in the 90s, that wasn't played by a guy with a tube sock on his wiener, you were looking at Tim.
Charlie Mingus?
Yes, Charlie Mingus. Wow, there's a name. But no, if there's one thing I will say about this record that really, I think anybody can like, whether you like the band as a whole or not, is Comfort's bass work on this. There's just something about that just adds like a thick funkiness to it that's just awesome. So it's sort of what they are, is anger with that little bit of weird syncopation, but like the overdrive on all the guitars and stuff just adds to that sort of pointed finger anger to the whole thing.
Yeah, kind of up to the point of Morello's playing the album, they did have the statement, as you can see on the Wikipedia I'm reading here, the statement, "No samples, keyboards, or synthesizers used in the making of this record." Was in this was in the liner notes. I imagine not as a statement against those things, just as a pointed to say, no, this guy did all that. This guy Tom did all that with his guitar, and that's just really cool. And it's just really cool and creative. And this album is really cool and creative and kind of classic in that respect. Patrick, what would be some of the key tracks to zero in on?
So I'm going to try to not be Drew and name literally every song on this record. Killing in the Name. This song is it's one, first and foremost, the heaviest sounding telly that ever did Telecaster. Just neck pickup through a Marshall cranked up. It is one of my favorite guitar tones in the world, and it makes me miss owning a Fender guitar and an amp that can properly overdrive itself, because it's just so wonderful and thick. But it's a fairly simple song, but because Tom, Timmy, and Brad are so tight as a band, it hits you again and again and again. And Zach De La Rocca screaming at you with the passion that he brought to this band. Take the Power Back, I'll mention because of Tom Morello's. This is sort of like the first crazy Tom Morello solo in terms of when that came around. And as he described it, Tom Morello wanted to do with the guitar what a DJ did with two turntables in hip hop. That was his inspiration. He wanted to make those sorts of sounds. Hence the, no samples or, electronics used. He was doing that all with basically slightly modified guitars and 3 or 4 effects pedals. It was actually a fairly simple setup
and scratching a guitar pick.
Yeah, and a guitar pick scratch. Yeah, I mean, there's like he wanted to be able to do the stuff a turntablist could do, but with a guitar. And that was this is one of his stuff. Those solos got crazier, and especially by their third record, he really had figured out how to do all the craziest of shit. Know Your Enemy. This is great, and this part of me loving this song is because I listened to this on tape. Kids, if you don't know what the thing that made cassette tapes was they had a side A and a side B, much like a vinyl record, which all you are hip to now. And Know Your Enemy starts side B of this album, and the opening of it is, again, Tom Morello doing some of his weird, crazy guitar stuff, messing basically with putting a kill switch on a guitar so you could make crazy cool echo sounds, and Timmy Comerford putting in a fat cool bass line. It's just a really, really iconic song of the early 90s, and one that I've always enjoyed. And then I mention it because it was the song that put this record in my hand, Freedom, the last song on it. It's like the dumbest, super easy guitar riff, but when you sit there and you're 15 years old and angry at the universe playing it, you feel really good about the world for a moment because it is just so freaking cool. It's a really, really fun song. The bass on it is really thumpy and driving, and it's again Zach De La Rocca screaming the paint off the walls in the way that only he could do so. And I could mention pretty much every other song on this record. The opener's really good. Wake Up's really good. Yeah, there's only 10 or 11 tracks, so it's not there's a million to mention.
You mentioned Know Your Enemy, and you're a Tool fan, and you didn't mention Maynard's on it. And I'm really
Maynard's on it very briefly. So, side note: Adam Jones, a guitar player from Tool, and Tom Morello went to school together, and they're like BFFs. So yeah, that happened. They've crossed paths more than a few times. But yeah, Maynard shows up for a moment because if you're going to get someone to sing on your record, it better be Maynard James Keenan.
Or someone good.
Brett, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
Bomb Track was a song that I was taught by my guitar teacher in 1996 or something. They're the one thing that you can say that these guys were really skilled at is writing an opening to a song, because they did that for longer than Rage Against the Machine. And they know how to make a groove. Bomb Track reminds me of that. Killing in the Name. That is probably the song that most people, it's the song that brung you. It was their lead single, and it was played to death. It's the first 50 seconds of that song, pretty all right. And it was also here's the template for future songs that played really well on the radio. It's not the greatest display of musicianship at its high levels, but they do harness energy, and there's no doubt that their use of style and technique made them stand out when they were you can spot a Rage Against the Machine song from 3 blocks away. But those were the 2 songs that I had the most experience with on a personal level. But there are other songs on this album, none that really stood out as much as those 2 for me.
Yeah, Killing in the Name, of course, has the most memorable sing along part that everybody sings along with, and to originally it's yelling at the man, and now everyone yells at the parents about singing the same line. But yeah, Drew, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
Well, bomb track, you have to. Like Brett said, the build up is great. There's something about the way that Rage Against the Machine can enter a song. Like bomb track. Not on this record, but Guerrilla Radio comes to mind as well. That they just do it very, very well. They can get you hyped up for a song very, very well. Which is good because it's mostly anger and you're trying to build on that. But also I have to mention bomb track because if you want a song that highlights to me that Comerford is better as a musician than Morello from a technical standpoint, it's this. Morello might be known for his inventiveness behind the six string and the noises he can make come out of it, and like that's crazy in and of itself from a creative standpoint. But Comerford, from in my opinion, is just his precision on the track is just great. Killing in the Name, it's sort of the iconic Rage Against the Machine song for a reason. It's political, it's biting, and it doesn't say a whole lot. And then Fistful of Steel. This is the one that Morello, it shows to me on this album why Morello, as far as a guitar player, is someone who people look at and like think crazy things of. This was their debut album, and he made something like he made the sounds that came out of Fistful of Steel on a guitar, which is insane to me.
Yeah, that is true for sure. Yeah, we come back around the horn, talk about some Cuckoo's thoughts on this really cool album. We have a lot of thoughts on. Brett, what would be your conclusive thoughts on this album as a whole?
I was into punk rock in my teens and early 20s. I understand the power of youthful energy. This album harnessed that. It put this music on a platform that punk rock never really did. It was more widely heard. It was more successful than any or most all of punk rock on TV and on the radio. This album sold a lot of copies. It went platinum 3 times. It's worth listening to, even if it was popular and successful. And also, it was a protest album that came out in the longest stretch of peace in the United States history in the modern era. It's juxtaposed with the time that it came out. I wish you can't separate the band from the time because this is 90s as fuck. But if you want to go back and see why everybody had a red t-shirt with a dude's face on it that they didn't quite, a lot of them understand, these are they.
Che shirts.
I want a shirt with Petey's face on it.
I'm not going to come here and defend Che Guevara shirts.
I want Petey's face.
I love Rage. I don't love Rage that much.
Yes, and I'm glad because I would kick you off the show.
No matter how much you like,
if you defended Che Guevara, I would kick you off the show.
I agree with it is a lot of people wearing a thing they don't quite understand.
Like all the idiots fucking mourning Fidel Castro. Like
he was sometimes it's okay that they're dicks. Like you can, it's whatever.
Like just because you like. Here's the thing. All right, I'm not gonna make this my soapbox.
Communism, y'all.
No. Just because even if you're communist or socialist, you don't have to defend Che or Fidel. They were dictators. They were murderers and dictators.
Yes, Pedro is right on that one.
Oh my God.
That's neither here nor there.
Shirts forever.
Yeah,
defend the LGBT community. I love Jake Guevara, and it doesn't make sense at all. And you're an idiot. Whatever.
No. It would. Yeah. I
You can't do both.
Yeah. I'm very much of the liberal camp, but no, fuck that. And not even just the Cuban in me, but no, fuck that.
Oh god.
Fuck that.
Because they weren't liberal by America. It's different.
Yeah, exactly. But it seems to be
let's wallow in this awkward.
Let's wallow in this awkward. Yes.
Just be angry for a half hour instead of giving my final point.
But that's neither here nor there. Let's talk about the music. This album is really cool and really interesting and innovative, and this wasn't the heyday of rap rock. That came later. This is its own thing. It was. If you want to say something about its melding of rap and metal, it was genuine. It was it wasn't a novelty. I mean, it was novel, but it wasn't a novelty. It wasn't a joke. It wasn't new metal. It wasn't, it was genuine. You had a genuine rapper poet up front, genuinely rapping and screaming like a metal guy. Well, not like a metal guy, like a rock guy. But everything was genuine, and it had different influences, and it was a cool record, and it was an important record, and it was an interesting record, an opinionated record. Patrick, what would be your? Well, we hit Brett. Did we hit Drew? Yes, Drew.
Drew just hates Che Guevara. That's right.
No, I just screamed about Che Guevara for 5 minutes.
All right, Drew. Sorry. What would be your conclusive thoughts on this album?
Like I said, Rage Against the Machine very much harnesses on anger. And whether you agree with that anger or not, as Patrick may have alluded to at the beginning, some of their politics, most of their politics, all of their politics, I don't really agree with. But the anger is something that Rage Against the Machine harnesses to their advantage. It was something that wasn't being done to that degree before. There was dabbling in the rap plus metal idea before them, but Rage Against the Machine sort of put the idea of doing that as a full band and having that be your milieu. It wasn't just Chuck D showing up with Anthrax. It wasn't just that idea, right? It was something more than that. And it was something that, if you look through the 90s, it was imitated a lot, right? But Rage Against the Machine did it first and did it to a pretty strong degree. It's something, though, that, if I'm going to be honest, I led in the first part of the review, the B block, after impressions, with I used to listen to this in Anti-Flag as a kid, and I may have tipped my hand a little bit at the Killing in the Name a little snippet there. It's something that there is a lot of anger there, and there is a lot of finger pointing and stuff like that, but also to that degree, especially this album, Roker got better on subsequent albums, but on this album specifically, there's nothing really, in my opinion, that points it out. They would hand out pamphlets at concerts and stuff like that would say more about the actual politics, but they didn't vocalize it, I think, as well on this record, which is kind of the crux of what they do. The music was fun enough, but it's something that just seems like a lot of anger and blowhardness at the times.
Definitely understandable thought. Patrick, what would be your conclusive thoughts on this album as a whole?
I think this album should be issued to basically every 15-year-old with a guitar or a bass or drum kit. If they're a little bit angry at the world, you need this. It is... I can play half this record on 3 instruments. It's not the most complicated thing in the universe, but it's fun, it's angry, it's passionate. I mean, if there's one thing that, that I think for me often is something I really look for in music, is that it's that there's like passion went into it, that like last week when we talked about Samus, like that girl's passionate about what she does and about how she writes and about speaking her mind. And this is a band that speaks their mind. You don't always agree with them. I don't always agree with them, and I'm pretty goddamn liberal. But a lot of just the sentiment is something that is something that I really enjoy. If you want to hear sort of they improved, I think, throughout their career. I think Battle of Los Angeles is an all-time classic, good record. It's a lot. It's what happens when these guys grow up. But I could not pick their first record because it was such a sort of powerful thing in my youth and in my journey in music, especially in playing it. And I still like again, I miss owning a Fender guitar, putting the neck pickup on through a distorted amp, and just tuning to drop D and blasting out these songs. It is dumb, powerful fun, and whether or not, as Drew said, like this is definitely an album that captures sort of late teenage, early 20s anger in a way that's very difficult, and it's not, like I said, like mad at your dad like a lot of new metal was. This is trying to say that we see the world as a fucked up place, and we want to sing songs about how fucked up it is. So go listen to it. Go listen to their third album. Second one's okay. Fourth album's a covers record, and they don't exist anymore. And I'm not sure they're ever going to make new music, and that makes me sad because I really enjoy these guys.
Yeah, Battle of Los Angeles, a great Rage record, also a great wrestling tournament.
Yes, yes, Bola, yo.
Yes. Rage Against the Machine. Those are our thoughts on Rage Against the Machine's self-titled debut album. Now we get to the main event of the evening, the moment y'all have been waiting for. We get to our haiku reviews. Let's see. I'll start with Brett. Brett, what is your haiku?
A groovy record, swimming in controversy. I'm sure they meant well.
Drew, what is your haiku?
Angst, anger, and hate. All too funky rap metal. Shallow politics.
Yes. My haiku. Activist music with innovative techniques and anger to spare. Patrick, what is your haiku?
An angry classic, a lesson in guitar licks. Still a fun record.
Mm-hmm. Those are our thoughts on Rage Against the Machine. You can, of course, find this on our Spotify playlist. Record Breakers a home game. I'll make sure to just include the album because it is kind of like the only one available is like the 20th anniversary with all the live cuts, but I'll just include the main record. But you can go check out the whole thing. See some nice live versions. Listen to some nice live versions of the songs. It's really cool. Yeah, go check it out on our Spotify playlist or wherever you listen to music. We don't have playlists elsewhere, but you can just do your own work. Don't have to be lazy. Lazy pants. On that Spotify playlist and where else you might find it, presumably is our next record, brought to us by Brett. Brett, what do you got for us next week?
We're going to a place I said we'd never go. We're going to go visit 1982's album Milo Goes to College by The Descendants.
Mm-hmm. So look forward to that discussion next week.
Slow pitch softball, everybody.
I was going to say, hey, easy crowd pleaser. All right. Cool.
Yes. So look forward to the fun next week. Fun discussion. Presumably next week. We'll figure out how our schedules work recording wise, but that will at least be our next episode.
Hey, it's 22 minutes long. It's a huge album.
Yes.
It'll take us a while to digest.
Yes. Exactly. Also keep an eye out.
You want to record in 3 days, guys?
Yeah, we'll figure something out. But keep an eye out for the next episode. Listen to that album. Check it out. You can, of course, find us all over the internet. Patrick is at Swagger. Brett is at HeyBDBearbird, HeyBDBiBiBiBard. Drew is at XJuciferX. I'm at PD Rave. The show is at 4 Record Breakers. That's the number 4 Record Breakers. RecordBreakersPodcast.com. RecordBreakersPodcast@gmail.com. If you want to send us emails, we might read some. I don't know. Just do it. Just for fun. Rebelli.net for this and other shows. Rebelli TV on YouTube and other places as well. We're on iTunes, Stitcher, Podcatcher, Podcast Palooza, Castaway, whatever other Pocket Casts, Pocket Play, Google
Podcast
Play,
Alley.
Podcast Alley, maybe. All those places, presumably.
The Zune store.
But look us up, share, like, subscribe.
Marketplace.
uh,
Had one. Cool.
yes.
Hey, squirt me something.
Until next time. Hasta los huevos.
Toodaloo. This is the show that never ends.